Dark Isles, Yekaterina by Brian Shinomiya. The sun hid behind the clouds, Mother Nature's seasonal hibernation, while everyone shivered underneath their winter coats and thick scarves. It was a bitterly cold day at the Renaissance Festival, yet it thrived with laughter and commotion as the little girl stood wide-eyed in her heavy winter coat made from grey fox fur. A fluffy pink wool scarf, given by a distant relative, was neatly wrapped around her petite neck. Her distinguished white ushanka hat, with its gold-plated, two-headed eagle badge, faced a dozen knights in armor and their well-trained horses. People dressed in colorful costumes paraded around her. She turned 7 today, the age of inevitable imagination. It was the first time her father decided to take her somewhere special and spend more time than just a few minutes with her. She never understood why he avoided her, but this morning was different. He had rushed into her bedroom and towered over her bed, shaking her shoulders to wake up. She awoke quickly. He turned to grab her coat and winter hat hanging on the wooden hook beside her door. "Yekaterina, let's go." She looked up at him, agitated and concerned.
"Go where, Papa?"
He took her hand. "Let's go ride the horses, my princess." The little girl had jumped out of bed in excitement. She was surprised at the thought of horses. They often appeared in her dreams. She quickly put on her winter attire and followed her father out the front door. When they arrived at the Renaissance Festival, she grabbed her father's hand and ran up ahead, pulling him through the crowd. The ground was covered with scattered footsteps. It was a busy day for medieval festivities. Purple and gray-skinned people stepped aside as she paved the way through the chitter-chatter and chaos. Yekaterina, before today, held 6 years of neglect against her father. He had treated her as if she was nothing more than a decorative piece of furniture. Today, however, was something special. She didn't care about the past and was fully immersed in the present. She was and felt so effortlessly like a princess. On her way to the horse stables, she imagined gigantic brown stallions jumping through thin air. Today, she was going to ride one. He lifted Yekaterina with his callous hands and placed her on his broad shoulders. His height was an advantage as she purred over the crowd. People filled the streets, dancing and eating. She squinted and stretched her eyes far across the festival. Several wooden and cobblestone shops, full of people entering and exiting them, were alongside the walkway. She looked down and noticed Russian and American soldiers, observing her winter attire. Gray and purple-skinned people smiled, while gray and white elves glared. Someone from the crowd yelled, "Mama Yekaterina!" She looked up and spotted a wonderfully lean brown stallion. Its hair resembled the silkiness of a milk chocolate candy bar.
"Papa, over there!"
Yekaterina yelled and patted him on the head, kicking her heels into his ribs. "Haha, you're kicking the wrong horse!" He laughed. She smiled and looked down again. Her grin suddenly faded when an unusual man caught her attention. He was young, in his early 20s, and had an average appearance. He had a slim figure, a grey complexion, and short white hair. He was looking up at her with his golden eyes and twisting a copper flower between his long fingers. Yekaterina couldn't look away. His presence was alluring, almost mesmerizing. She knew it in her heart he'd be hers one day. Her father, unaware of the interaction, blindly walked past him. The man extended his arm, with the hand that held the handmade copper flower, up to Yekaterina. She reached out and took it. He smiled. Her father kept walking and the man disappeared into the crowd. She knew it was made for someone else, an elfess, that used his feelings for her benefit. "Here we are, my princess," her father announced. He lifted her off his shoulders and set her on the ground. She watched him walk over to the man holding the horse's reins. Yekaterina, confused by the stranger and the desirable gift, carefully slid it into her coat pocket. She didn't want to damage the copper flower, as it held a special beauty, one she wanted to preserve. Suddenly, and from a distance, she heard a song that her mother used to sing to her. Every new day is a new memory, a story without a beginning and without an end. Get stronger. It is all in your hands. The whole world is around you. It lasts for miles. Your time will come. Just take a step. This is the time to love, the time to dream. You have 100 ways, so be brave. There will be 100 roads ahead. A woman, wrapped in an elegant beige cloak, stopped and peered down at Yekaterina. She gave Yekaterina a soft, welcoming smile. When Yekaterina looked up, she noticed something odd about the woman. Under her hood, she could see snow-white skin and scarlet eyes. "What a beautiful girl you are," the woman said. Her voice was soft like the sound of rain. "What is your name, child?" she asked.
Yekaterina Kutuzova.
The woman knelt to be on Yekaterina's level. "Such a strong name," she responded. Her father was still talking to the man at the horse stables. The woman continued to acknowledge Yekaterina in a friendly manner. "Yekaterina, the wife of Tsar Peter the Great and Kutuzov, as in Mikhail Kutuzov, who fought Napoleon." Yekaterina was confused. She wasn't aware of such dramatic stories of history quite yet. "Would you like to know what the future holds for you, my dear?" she asked, placing a hand on Yekaterina's cheek. A warm sensation overtook Yekaterina as she found herself speechless and hypnotized. A nod was all she could do. The woman's mere presence had completely captivated her. She was unable to look elsewhere. The woman's red eyes glowed warmer than gold. Yekaterina felt frightened, but more curious. The woman smiled as she stroked Yekaterina's cheek. "Give me your hand." Her voice captivated Yekaterina's attention. The woman held Yekaterina's left hand, raising her tiny palm towards the grey overcast sky. She studied the cracks and lines in the center of her palm. "Your life will not be an easy one, my child," the woman said.
But why?
Yekaterina whined with a heavy heart. Tears began to fill her eyes from the thought of a lonely life. The snow-white woman put a finger over Yekaterina's mouth. "Don't worry, child," she said. The woman glanced down, the action causing a few strands of silver hair to fall out from under her hood. She looked up at the sky and said, "Life is always complicated, my child. You will raise your people from the ashes of war and lead them." Yekaterina couldn't believe what she was hearing. Through her life, she had always desired something more, something significant. She was, for her age, a passionate child. Without having a father figure in her life, she always found it within herself to be strong and dominant. She wanted to lead, help, and be someone that others relied on. She knew within herself that fire, even without a flame, still warmed her bones. The woman looked into Yekaterina's eyes and said, "Royal blood flows in your veins as, like the Peter I, you are designed to lead the navy. There will be troubled times, a time of protracted wars and disasters. You must go to Moscow, to the Sukhar Tower, to gain your knowledge. You will be a captain who will lead her people as fearlessly as the mighty Russian bear." Yekaterina's eyes widened and her heart, feeling heavier than ever, dropped to her stomach.
Me? A Navy captain?
Yekaterina questioned. She gasped as she looked to the sky.
I've always wanted to see the stars. I can't see them from the ground. Papa says it's because of all the lights from the city.
Her passion was coming out in her voice. The woman smiled, her hand still resting on Yekaterina's cheek. Yes, my child. You will lead ships in space. You will free your people and save an island on another world.
I will see another world?
Yekaterina shouted. The woman laughed and said, You will become a noble Russian princess who will be watched over by the goddess Mara. This goddess takes lives as well as gives them, but firstly, give to the needy the most valuable. Yekaterina laughed and raised her arms to the sky.
But I'm already a princess.
She grabbed her hat to show the woman. The woman nodded. Yes, dear, and you will do much more than ride a horse. I promise you. Yekaterina, just now remembering the idea of riding a horse, looked over at her father. He was shaking hands with the man. It appeared that their conversation was almost over. Yekaterina quickly looked back over to the woman, but she was gone. She looked around. The crowd was busier than ever. The woman had simply disappeared. Yekaterina stood there, full of more hope than ever before. Something in the woman's voice, the words she spoke to her, sank into her soul. Did that stranger see something mysterious in the interweaving of the thin lines on Yekaterina's small hand? Will she have to lead the people and rule the fleet? Suddenly, in the depths of the noisy fair, Yekaterina saw something strange. An old gypsy, frazzled and hunched with tousled hair, shouting out loud. A pack of stray dogs had circled her, each growling and ready to attack. She yelled back as each dog tried to bite a bundle of bread from her basket. No one attempted to help her.
Papa!
Yekaterina yelled. He was too far away to hear her. Yekaterina couldn't let the old lady fend for herself.
Go back! Leave her!
Yekaterina yelled, making her way through the crowd towards the pack of vicious dogs. A hold, Koshki! Yekaterina turned around, thinking someone had called out to her.